Black people can also be racist against other black people.
Or just make mistakes.
So if anybody does anything you disagree with in regards to the Central Park Five, even if they themselves are a black person, they're just a self-loathing black person, they're just a racist black person.
If they disagree with me, they're racist.
That prosecutor was doing his job.
That's my policy. If they disagree with me, they're racist.
Hey peeps, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, and that is Jubilee's new middle ground video, Black conservatives versus white liberals. This should be a good one. My predictions is going to be the white liberals are definitely going to be triggered, because we know, and I talk about this all the time, how white liberals tend to have the white savior complex, the virtue signaling complex, where they have to save people of color, particularly black people, from their oppression. And in my opinion, there is nothing more racist than assuming that just because you are white, that you have power over a black person, that black person feels inferior to you. Therefore, you have to dumb down yourself to make them feel more comfortable. Nothing screams narcissism and racism than that. And that's the irony of it all, is that most white liberals tend to be the most racist people without even realizing it. While they're saving people of color, they actually are embarrassing themselves. So I am interested in seeing how this plays out. I'm sure they're going to be confused. I'm assuming they're probably going to try to teach the black people about their own history, because again, liberals. So without further ado, guys, let's just get into this video. It's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna have a link in my description to the full video if you want to watch it.
I was chosen to read the following prompt. White Americans have way more advantages than black Americans.
I think I'm a rarity here.
It would seem so.
Do white Americans have more advantages because they're white? Or do just white Americans have advantages because of historic factors? I think that people want to argue at the end of the day over whether it's because you're white or not. I think that the answer is because you're white in the past, and that's how it kind of carries over to today. You know, even in times of the United States history where black people have tried to build wealth, you know, with the Tulsa riots and everything, yes, where, yeah, that this wealth has been destroyed. And something that's upsetting to me is when conservatives talk about how we can't blame the past for what's happening in the present. That is true to some extent, but then in the next breath they'll talk about how important it is to have dual-parent households, how important it is to have a strong family, to have responsibility passed on from parent to child. And we've seen in the past that because of racial issues, that process has been severely disrupted.
The funny thing is that...
Hold on a second. Already, I gotta respond. I'm sorry, guys. So this guy named Destiny, who is a white liberal. So when he first started speaking, I was like, all right, he's making some sense here. You definitely have to speak about the past in order to not repeat it, right? So I agree with that completely. But where I disagree with him is when he starts to make excuses and says that, because I guess what he's trying to say is when conservatives say that two-parent family homes and nuclear homes within the family are important, which it is, it sounds like he's trying to say that black people don't have that because of racial issues, and that black people are more susceptible to broken homes because of racial issues. And again, it's not because of bad choices that those black people may be making for their families, it's because of white people and racism and white supremacy. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I actually did a reaction video when Larry Elder went on the Breakfast Club, and he actually spoke about this in detail. So I implore you guys to watch that video that I reacted to. He talks about the breakdown of the black family and how that is the reason why black individuals in this country aren't progressing like they should be, because so many, you know, women are single mothers, and so many families within the black community are broken. And if you look in past history, when there was rampant racism, we're talking about Jim Crow, we're talking about KKK was on the rise, it was crazy. And back then, black families were together, and the success rate was actually higher for black people back then than it is today. Why is that? It was rare to see a single black woman in a home. It was rare. It wasn't until Lyndon Johnson came along and created the welfare system that we started to see that liberal social system break down the black family. But of course, he won't say that. It's white supremacy.
Agreeing with all these things is when I did my research when I was younger, which arrived me to my standpoint of being a conservative, because I believed it was racist, Democrat, liberal ideologies and policies dating all the way back to the 1800s,
boom,
all the way up to the 1960s.
Liberals.
The purported big switch, but I think it was more so when Democrats decided to be a bit more cloak and dagger about their true opinions of black people and be more secretive and more, oh, we want to help you by, you know, doing these things and seeing them as inferior.
Yes.
Affirmative action, welfare, all sorts of things that eventually ruin our culture and places where we are now.
So
but I want to get back to the history of it, because we're talking about...
Well, I just want to make sure we're clear. Giving them money hurt them, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, giving them, because if your father's out of the home, that's when we give you the money. If you're living in
Yeah,
this
so
housing,
then give
if
them the
you're
money
living
while
in
the
this
dad's
housing
in.
rent-free,
Well, then
that's
give
how
them
you
the
get
money
more of
while
the
the dad's in
money.
the home.
If you're working
So
this
give
amount of
them the-
hours and getting less than this amount of
You're
dollars,
throwing-
you're getting money
you're
from the
throwing
government.
the
Yes,
baby-
it is
you're
incentivizing.
throwing the baby out with the
it is-
bathwater.
I don't even know what that means in this scenario because yes,
You're
okay,
throwing-
you want to talk about throwing babies
Okay,
out with
let
the
me break this
bathwater?
down for
Margaret
you.
Sanger wanted to exterminate the black race because she thought they were weeds. So yeah, we can literally talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's what Margaret Sanger, that's what Democrat policies wanted to do to my people. So that's why I feel so strongly about it, because it is these policies
Preach.
that date back centuries that were built off of the death and poverty of my people.
Let's take a
right.
breath. So,
I'm breathing.
okay.
So a lot of babies aren't, but I am,
Okay.
sadly.
Ooh.
I don't know what that means. When I say throw the
I
baby
do.
out with the bathwater, you want to completely get rid of welfare, okay? Or at least the I don't want to put that on you. You haven't said that, but the conservative apparatus does, clearly. So giving money to a group of people does not hurt them.
I mean,
It
sure, if
can't.
you're talking about a lottery,
It
just
literally
take
can't.
money. But
Yes.
there are strings
Take money.
attached to that money.
Take all the
there
money.
are strings attached
Give
to
them
that
millions. Make them all millionaires. I don't care. Giving money to black people does not hurt them.
money. And that has
thinking
not
that-
happened, though. That has not happened. Though.
What do you mean?
That has not happened.
No.
It hasn't been a
You're saying
reparations. It hasn't been this
so
or that.
what
It has
you're
been
saying,
a welfare program,
welfare
Great
was
Societies
designed.
Act that was
Welfare
built
was
off of the idea of, hey, we get these families split up, we get these
so
people
then let
living
them
here.
keep the family together and keep all the money.
I mean,
There you go.
I guess
Boom,
so,
done.
but I guarantee you,
I guess
there's
so.
no way
Why
that
would you not advocate for that?
So
Something tells me Alec is probably a socialist when he says, just give them all the money, just give it to them, I don't care. Give them everything. And whose money would you be taking from to distribute to everyone else? I'm just curious.
the downstream effects of slavery, do you think put black people as generally in a worse off position than white Americans?
I think generation by generation, the effects of slavery have been diluted, but generation by generation, the effects of racism, welfare-based policies, and things of that nature became even more great. So in the 1880s or so, when we had our first black members of Congress, which were indeed Republicans, I think that was a great start for things. But obviously, we had terrible things that happened, like the Tulsa massacre, among black people being chased out of their homes by the KKK.
Sure.
All funded by the Democrat Party, all supported by the Democrat
Okay,
Party.
well, I need to stop you there. Can you attribute not to the party but to the ideology? Because I think when you think, regardless of whatever the party switch was, traditionally conservative values did not that's more aligned with more racist policies in this
Very
country.
difficult to compare.
Oh, so when it's convenient, you would like him not to speak about Democrats in the past and what they used to support. And the fact that the Democrat Party back in the day were the party of slavery and Jim Crow and of segregation. And that it was a Republican and Abraham Lincoln who helped end slavery in this country. Of course, let's not talk about that because that's inconvenient for me as a liberal. So let's not talk about that. Can we not say Democrat, please? Because I'm triggered.
So personally, I feel like there's really only one thing that white people have a true advantage over black people with, and it's that white people are less likely to be forced into a box. It happens with black people onto other black people, but it especially happens with white liberals onto black conservatives, where we are told that we are supposed to think a certain way, be a certain way, and if we're not, then we're called all these names like etc. And the worst of all is bootlicker, because I hate when a white liberal tells me as a black man that I'm a bootlicker, because then I ask, whose boot am I licking? Because you're telling me as a white person that me as a black person that I'm licking your boot because I don't think in this box that you want me to frame my mentality in.
Preach.
That to me is real racism, and that's what we need to stop allowing to happen to us, because black people are so quick now to not branch out and to have new ways of thinking, or to go into careers like agriculture and these other career paths that black people don't typically get into. It's not because of racism stopping them from
fear.
getting in there. It's because we're told for so long that you have to follow this path and you have to think a certain way.
I think America is a great place for a black person. I think I'm an American. Anything that's available to you is available to me and mine.
I've personally never experienced white people having way more privileges than me. I'm sure you could find certain institutions where black people are treated differently, but in general, I don't think that I've missed out on anything because of being black. And if anything, it's given me more of a voice because people will want to hear what I say now because I'm black. So if anything, I have more of a platform now just on the basis of being a black conservative and saying what's not popular than I would if I was just a white person who was also conservative.
I agree
Excellent point, which again is something that people don't like to hear, especially on the liberal side, that there are privileges that you have if you are a liberal, and especially if you are a black liberal or a Hispanic liberal or a person of color who's a liberal, whatever you want to call it. There are privileges because white people will make room for you to speak as long as you're repeating what they want you to say. You're popular. Everyone loves you. Social media loves you. The media loves you. You are the darling. That's how it works. But when you're a person of color and you speak out against liberal ideology, suddenly you're a traitor. You're the problem. I've been told this many times. I post videos all the time that are political, especially on TikTok, and I can't tell you how many times I get called a traitor because I'm Latino and I'm saying things that are not liberal. How dare you? You're a traitor. What's wrong with you? Like, I get told that by not just other Hispanics who are liberal, but white people. And again, like he said, you are putting people in boxes, expecting them to perform the way that you want them to perform. And if they don't, they're a bootlicker, they're Uncle Tom, they're chucking and driving. I mean, everything you can think of that's offensive comes out of the mouths of people with a certain ideology that is not conservative when you do not speak the liberal language. Let's talk about that. They're not ready. Especially the guy who didn't want the other man to talk about Democrats and say the word Democrat.
I agree with the Supreme Court's decision to end affirmative action.
I think I'm not going to start. Someone else can start. Sorry.
I think affirmative action has served its purpose. I think that it was necessary for a particular time. And I think that every black person knows how to get into college. You can pull out the names, the Oprah, President Obama. You can pull out the head of Time Warner was black man, the Forbes was black man. We know what to do now. We don't need affirmative action anymore. And to me, affirmative action is offensive sometimes, especially nowadays, because I have 6 children and 2 boys, 4 girls. And all of them went to Harvard and Columbia and this one and that one. And it breaks my heart to think that they accomplished that goal of getting into these institutions just because of the color of their skin.
I can definitely say that it creates a lot of tension when you have affirmative action. I remember my first week at the University of Illinois, I was sitting with some classmates and a white student turned to me and jokingly like, "Hey, Xavier, like, did you just attach a smiley face when you applied for this college?" And I started asking what he meant. And he said to me that he was like, "You're black. I'm assuming you had decent grades. Wow. You could have just attached a smiley face and you would have gotten into the university." So I was livid by that, and I went off and started naming all my accomplishments, and I felt so confident only for about an hour, because then an hour later I started saying to myself, like, wow, like, did I actually earn my way in here? I started to have this insecurity, and I started wondering to myself, did I earn this position myself, or did my ancestors' suffering earn this for me?
And too, I've seen it in the sense of like affirmative action taking away from other people who are minorities. Like I had a friend who was Asian and he in high school and he really wanted to go to MIT. That was his dream school. He interned there. He was super like prepared to go there and he didn't get in. And you can only assume that it was because of affirmative action because they have such a large Asian population that they want to admit other people.
But I feel like because of everything you guys have said, the optics behind it are so horrible today that even if it is slightly beneficial in the long run for certain people, I think we can probably refocus most of that into figuring out like the class that people come from, the neighborhoods, the backgrounds or whatever, without it having to necessarily target race. The only thing that I kind of wonder now that it's gone is instead of a black person being in school thinking like, man, am I here because I'm an affirmative action pick, is it going to be a kid that is poor or a kid that's from a different zip code?
I think we should do away with all of it. It's just like submit an application, no demographics. Why do they ask your sexuality? Like, why do they ask all that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question that she just asked. Like, why, when filling out these applications, do you even have to mention your race, your sexuality, what city you're from, like things of that nature that don't have anything to do with your actual academics shouldn't even be in the questionnaire. Just show me your grades, show proof that you are a living human being, and that's all we need to see. We don't need to know any other identities about you because none of that really matters. And I think if you actually put it on that basis, it will eliminate the feelings of people who make it into these schools feeling as though, oh, I'm just a token, or people not giving you the props you deserve because you're black or you're Hispanic or you're Asian. So you must have gotten to the school because like that's what affirmative action has become. It was necessary in the early days when segregation was just ended and Jim Crow was just ended. Of course it was necessary back then because the system was so skewed against people of color. But we have come a long way since then, people. We are not living in 1960 any longer. We're not. And as time has progressed, so should we. And that includes getting rid of affirmative action.
So, if affirmative action accomplished its purpose, why do we still see the disparities that we do in the professional workplace? If you average white wealth and compare it to black wealth totals, white people as a whole have about 50 times greater wealth than black people as a whole. per capita. So I just don't understand why you think affirmative action has accomplished its purpose. I don't see
Curious, why do you assume that just because there is a disparity means it's because of a racial issue?
What else would it be from?
I mean,
Upbringing, economic abilities,
Desire to
skills.
go, desire to.
I mean,
So
zip
it
code
was
does
culture.
play a lot. If you grow up in a neighborhood that experiences a lot of trauma, you're not as likely to do as well in school, which means you're.
Why did they grow up in a neighborhood that experiences a lot of trauma?
I mean, lots of people do.
Yes,
live in
but
a-
why specifically do more black people?
Government assistance programs.
Government assistance programs, like what?
Try redlining.
I mean, you can go into that if you'd like to, but let's take
It
a
is
look
relevant.
at the Great Societies Act, which was created to kick black fathers out of the home and get black mothers on welfare assistance. These things aren't beneficial for economics. These things aren't beneficial for actually paving a way for success.
Something I think that this conversation illustrates is that like affirmative action is literally the very end of the line of a lot of different parts of a person's life. And by that point, trying to rectify all of the inequities that have existed, to try to remedy any of that at the very end with affirmative action, it might just be too broad a brush, and maybe we'd be better served focusing on the earlier
Really quickly,
issues.
sorry to cut him off, but it's really interesting that I'm sorry, I forgot the guy's name, but the guy with the glasses, the liberal, says, well, the reason why affirmative action is needed is because black people tend to have more of a disparity when it comes to broken homes and when it comes to their communities. And, why is that? Why is that? And then when the other gentleman speaks and says, well, it's because of the system that was created, right? The welfare system that was created by liberals, because it was, that has not been beneficial to black people, immediately he goes into defense. But it's like, you can't talk about the system and then in response say, don't talk about the system. It works. It doesn't work because welfare has been around for a long time. And as we see, it is not beneficial to black people. It's not. So what does that say? According to him, we still need affirmative action because there is such a grave disparity amongst black people versus white people when it comes to income and when it comes to broken families. Then tell me, how has the welfare system helped? So shouldn't it have by now fixed the disparity? If social programs like welfare was supposed to be a good thing for black people, why is there still a disparity? According to you, most black people are liberals. Most black people live under the democratic system. Most black people are Democrats. Most black people vote for those policies. Yet, according to you, they're still under the disparity line. Question is, why do you still believe in that system if by your own admission, it's not working? Perhaps something else needs to be done, which is why there is a movement now of so many black individuals who are leaving the Democrat Party and who are being red-pilled because they're realizing that that system that was created by white liberals doesn't work. Let's go to the next prompt.
Trump supports Black lives.
Here we go. Interesting.
I think that President Trump supports all lives. I think that he looks at all American citizens as equal. I don't see him doing anything that would make you feel like he does not support Black lives. That's, of course, going to lead into the conversation of Black Lives Matter, which was a movement and an organization with so much corruption. Donald Trump not supporting that organization doesn't mean that he doesn't support Black lives. It just means that he doesn't support the fraudulent organization that's stealing so much money from so many people to do absolutely nothing with it, nor does he support a destructive movement that is destroying cities, communities, lives, etc. So I don't see why someone would think that President Trump doesn't support Black lives.
Let's see.
I've heard him say he knows all the best black people. He has all the best black friends. I do support black people all the time. So sorry, that was a very bad impression, but
It was.
I don't think Donald Trump wants bad things to happen to black people. So in that respect, I think he does support Black lives. But the other side of that is he's not really doing anything. He didn't do anything as president, certainly, to uplift black people.
The economy affects black people.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with that point. One of the biggest things I
What does he do for the
supported
economy?
personally. Well, yeah, we'll get into that one later. One of the biggest things he did is he secured permanent funding for HBCUs, one of the largest increases we ever saw for HBCUs, personally done by his administration, among many other things. The First Step Act, which, there's a lot of debate about whether it was really the best thing to do, but that was definitely a kiss of love to the black race. Freeing Alice Johnson for menial drug crimes she committed in the past that had her locked up. She did not get to see her family for years.
Yeah, but that's not okay, I did say I agree, but I agree in the sense that Donald Trump doesn't literally want bad things to happen to black people, like I think a lot of conservatives do. So I think that he just says the most yeah, I do think that. I think he says the things that will get him elected. So I don't think that he has any personal grudges against most people. He just says the most popular thing.
His hotels, all of his businesses have rampant history of denying black people apartments or whatever. So
I forgot about that. I should not have stepped forward.
Look, I mean, Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump. So I don't think he really cares about anyone, I guess, unless you're like super rich or whatever.
The plethora of comments he made about Mexican people, the comments he made about Muslims, the idea that Trump cares at all about some particular racial minority, I think is a little bit silly. I think Trump will say whatever he needs to say to rile up his base and to get elected.
I don't necessarily think those statements come from a place of hatred. I don't think he was ever saying specifically, oh, if you pray 5 times a day towards the east or towards Mecca based on wherever you are, you're a bad person. I think he was saying if you like to fly planes into towers or behead people or throw people off of buildings, maybe you're not the most virtuous person out there.
I understand that the prosecutor of the 5, he was a black guy. And so in being a black guy, he went and he looked at all the evidence and said, these guys are guilty.
Black people can also be racist against other black people.
Or just make mistakes.
So if anybody does anything you disagree with in regards to the Central Park 5, even if they themselves are a black person, then they're just a self-loathing black person, they're just a racist black person.
If they disagree with me, they're
prosecutor
racist.
was doing his job.
That's my policy. If they disagree with me, they're racist. So I'm just saying.
So I need you to elaborate on if people disagree with you, they're racist, just in general.
I was just kidding.
He's just, yeah.
You never know.
Just like
one
the
of those
hat.
kind of moments.
Sorry if I triggered you. I'm sorry.
You made
No,
a
I'm not
point.
sure. I just
You made a
need to know.
point
Okay.
a couple minutes back where you said he just kind of says these things to rile up his base. Why does he need to do that at the expense of black people then?
He doesn't do that at the. I am a member of his base, and I'm sitting there like, oh man, this is amazing. And I don't know. You can call me self-loathing. You can call me self-hating.
So you're
you can call
saying
me
calling
racist.
for the
I'm
public
stupid.
execution of 5 black men that were exonerated to
When
rile
has he
up
done
his
that
base?
during the campaign trail? He didn't do that when he was a politician.
Well,
He did that when
again,
he was a
it's
scared businessman
everything.
in New York.
It's
feeling
everything
bad.
Steve said about the comments about Muslims, the comments about.
Their issue with Donald Trump is always about things that he did in the past before he was a politician. The whole grab them by the you-know-what happened years before he ever became a politician and was running for president. Let's go into your closet and see all of your past transgressions. Let's look at your Twitter account. Let's see things that you said 10, 15 years ago. And if you said anything that's offensive today, you're canceled. See, liberals love to cancel everyone and anything that doesn't affirm their feelings today. But things were different back then. Opinions were different. The culture was different back then. And to judge someone based on what happened 15 plus years ago is ridiculous because people change. People evolve. It happens. You and I have evolved, hopefully. I used to be a dumb liberal, so trust and believe I've evolved. And it's unfortunate that these people can't see that a person is allowed to change. A person is allowed to evolve. A person is allowed to grow from what and who they used to be, except for Donald Trump and except for conservatives. All right, let's go to reparations.
Reparations are necessary.
Reparations are necessary. Of course.
When we talk about reparations, I think that doing reparations in a way that a lot of people think of it, where we just give it to black people, I'm not an expert on this, but I think it would be more income-based, and that in itself, like I said earlier, would disproportionately benefit black people, because if you recognize that they're disproportionately affected by systemic injustice, then doing it on like a class level would uplift proportionally more black people than white people or any race.
Yeah, I think like mostly like black GIs that were left out of like the New Deal, for instance, that to be able to come back and as a white American, as a white veteran, to get a home loan and then build that generational wealth, you could not get that as a black American. So there needs to be, I think, reparations. I don't care really what form it comes from. I think free healthcare, free college, so that everyone has like an equal opportunity to educate themselves, to build a better life for themselves. So it's sort of like, and I think Germany is also a perfect model to follow. By issuing, first of all, a formal apology, which we haven't even done that, but also just like donating to like different funds, and just I think a more equitable society striving for that is reparations.
Hold up a second. So he said that we never issued a formal apology. So ending slavery during the Civil War wasn't enough, really? Because Republicans fought to end slavery. I mean, I can't.
I know we don't want to use the word virtue signaling, but it's sort of like a bribe for a vote in a way, at least in my opinion. In states like California, where they've been throwing around the idea of, we want to pay out this much money to every black citizen in there, in the state, it's like,
Are you serious? Because this is kind of like a joke, in my opinion.
I think that if we impose reparations now, I think it would rip America apart. I think that we're already separated enough as it is, and now you're going to have people walking around going, "You owe me money. You owe me money. I'm not paying you any money." It would just really rip us apart.
Giving somebody money doesn't mean anything if they don't know what to do with the money or how to handle the money. So if the primary issue in black culture or with black people is generational trauma, then maybe they need more therapy than they need money, honestly.
And really quickly, what about the black people who have been successful? What about the black families who have lawyers and doctors and who have made something of themselves, who lived the American dream, who are going to Ivy League schools, who are prospering? Do they get reparations, or is it just those that grew up in the hood? Like who creates that line? Who makes the rules? Like, it's just way too murky right now. Had this been done during the Civil War era or even the Civil Rights era, it would have made sense. But in this day and age, it makes no sense, especially with affirmative action. Affirmative action has leveled the playing field substantially and has given privilege to people of color in many instances, like they talked about already in this video. So giving money on top of that makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Conservatives are also against.
Well, that's kind of my argument. Like, if there is like that, like generational trauma or whatever, like I think examples of like free healthcare, they could see a therapist and not be, fall into debt. And I think the argument of like the logistical nightmares of it, I think if we want to pay for something in this country, we usually find a way to do it, especially when it comes to the military. So, we pay for multi-billion-dollar jets all the time.
It's who's supposed to get them.
Not to attack progressives, but that is like the most progressive idea in the world. Is like, I can see the headlines like reparations voted on in Congress to be paid in the form of free therapy for people in the hood. That just sounds like the funniest thing in the world. But
well, I also don't think it's gonna come directly from like, white person to black person. Like, oh, your lineage affected his lineage.
It is though. Like in San Francisco, they were going to raise the average family, or the average household in San Francisco was expected to pay $600,000 each with the $5 million per black person proposal that they had. And I used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was repulsed by that because you have so many homeless veterans on the streets, and they were going to give black people a home for as little as $1 just for being black. Mind you, slavery wasn't even in California.
Yeah, hello.
So why that was going to be the case, like, I don't understand, but it's extremely unrealistic to think that the average family in San Francisco can afford that.
That's because Newsom wants to get reelected.
Okay, but you don't really care about homeless veterans, right? Like, you don't support.
You don't know me.
All your arguments are ad hominem.
But you're
Literally
here as a
every single one ad
You're here as a
hominem.
conservative. So what policies do you support for homeless veterans?
There's ways to address,
Specifically.
for homeless in general.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that we didn't find a middle ground in there.
That guy cannot be any more pompous if he tried. Oh, you don't care about homeless people, right? And veterans? Because you're a conservative, right? A headache. It's a headache. Let's see what the last prompt is. Let me see if I want to even react to it. Actually, I think that was the last prompt.
White liberals have a savior complex.
Oh, we definitely reacting to this one. White liberals have a savior complex. Hell yeah.
White liberals have a savior complex.
All the white liberals walked up.
Well, I gotta say, this is a shock. I never expected all four of you to just come forward and admit it, but you know what? I'm happy with these results.
I just think it's a lot of people, I guess, people, of the left, whatever, you kind of fall into that trap of thinking that, black people as a monolith need to be saved as a whole.
I have no shame about it. I have a savior complex as an older brother, and I will save you whether you like it or not. So that's just me. Even if you as individual people are doing fine and you don't want anybody else to get in the way of that, that's cool, and I'm not going to be the one to get in the way. But the disparities are undeniable.
So if you take pride in having like a white...
But you are getting in the way because by your own admission, you want to save everybody, right? You're the big brother, you want to save them. So even if you aren't specifically saving specific black people, if you're going to these marches and if you are excusing bad behavior like these people who are going into Target and stealing things, burning down businesses, and you're making excuses, you are not helping the black community. You're not. You're hurting the black community, if anything else. And you are profiting by excusing this behavior to get brownie points for your virtue signaling white savior complex. So it doesn't matter if you aren't looking at an individual black person and saying, I'm going to save you. If you are supporting bad behavior and excusing bad behavior, you are the problem.
What is it that you think that you're saving black people from?
I am trying to make the world a better place through whatever means I can. And
But you're doing it on the backs of us.
I would say so.
Yeah, I actually do. I feel like you want to be a savior and you're using me to make yourself feel good. That's what
How
I'm
am I
hearing.
hurting you?
You're not letting me have my own voice. You're not letting me speak.
How? You're speaking now?
Yeah.
Cut her off.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I have to.
Yeah. Well, what's happening? I mean, you're speaking right
Be careful, white boy.
now in this particular setting. But what you're saying is, like, you took it back to riots and so forth, and it makes it seem like the only way that we as black people can have a voice is by riots, and then you need to come along and you need to say, okay, poor little black child, let me help you. That's offensive to me, and I feel like you're making yourself feel good about trying to tame
100%.
help us, and it.
I also think that, like, when we talk about damage, I think especially when it comes to a lot of the shoplifting stuff that's going on in certain cities, you get a lot of white people that live in nice suburbs saying things like shoplifting is no big deal, that's fine, and then you'll catch YouTube videos of them later on being in a Walgreens in like a shoddy neighborhood, and I'm like, man, why is the deodorant behind a locked case? It's very easy to sit behind a gated community and say, oh, well, it's not a big deal,
I agree.
They steal because they have to. Riots are the language of the unheard. I think people haven't read the full context of that quote. When MLK was saying riots are the language of the unheard, you need to address the underlying condition. He wasn't condoning the rioting. He was just understanding it.
Obviously, there are a bunch of white people that feel they need to be a savior, but I think there's a difference between helping and saving. Like, I don't think I need to save black people, but I would tremendously love to help and make sure everyone has like equal outcome, or not equal outcome, but at least equal opportunity. Which,
Okay, if you want to help, get out of the way. Stop trying to be a savior. Nobody wants your help. Sit down. Treat every black person like everyone else. Stop treating black people like their skin color is a disability. How about that? Let's start there.
This is awkward. Hi, guys. So I didn't step forward just because I don't want to broad brush all white liberals as having a white savior complex. I have experienced white liberals who do have that, and they're very unpleasant people. But I don't think every single white person who's a liberal or who is an activist for BLM or any of those things necessarily has a white savior complex. I think that there's a lot of white people who genuinely think that black people are oppressed and they want to help, and that's what they're told.
What it seems like to me, when most people have savior complex, regardless of whom they're trying to save, it's like they're taking real pain and real trauma and using that as a way to push this political agenda, but also to alleviate themselves of whatever guilt that they feel unnecessarily. Like, I don't know why a white person today would feel guilty for things that happened decades ago, let alone something that happened centuries ago.
I've never seen a white person say, I personally feel guilty for slavery.
Really?
Maybe they're out there, but
I have.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, in second grade, when they taught us about slavery, almost every kid in my classroom would spend their entire time looking at black kids in that classroom. How was I supposed to not think, wow, these people are feeling guilty for something that they have no involvement in and I have no involvement in?
Every kid in my classroom understood the context.
People
so.
hate feeling uncomfortable, and obviously you don't want to feel like the bad guy, and so I feel like it comes from a place of like, oh, well, like, let me make sure that I'm different, and like I'm showing you that I want to like help you, but it comes across like I think it can land very poorly.
I'll tell you what, stop it.
Yes.
Stop it. Because what happens is when you put yourself as the white savior, what you do is you elevate yourself above the black person, because you feel then like you have to save us. So just stop it. Just treat everybody regular and normal. Just like I would treat you regular and normal, you treat us regular and normal rather than trying to save us.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. Like I expected, a bunch of black conservatives who were of sound mind, in my opinion, who literally were just saying, just treat me like a normal person, like you would treat anybody else. Don't treat me differently, and we good. And then, of course, you have the white liberals who are making excuses, who are trying to tell the black people, no, you need our help. Don't you understand? You're oppressed. I mean, it's expected. The conversation went exactly how I expected it to go. And I think the best way to solve this is like the woman said at the end. Just treat me and everyone else the same. We don't need you to treat us differently. And by us, of course, I mean black people. Stop treating people differently based on color. Because that in itself is a form of racism without you even realizing it. It is. Cut it out. Enough. My head hurts after watching that. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of this video. Whose side were you on? The black conservatives or the white liberals? Where do you stand on this issue? And let me know. If you enjoy my content, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit my notification bell so you know when I post a brand new video. Hit me up also on TikTok and on Instagram where I post there daily. So let's connect. And if you guys want to donate to my channel, I'm going to have a link to my Cash App as well as to my PayPal. All money will be going back into this channel so that I can continue doing what I'm doing. And guys, I'm so close. I'm so close to hitting 200,000 subscribers. January of this year, I had 1.8 thousand subscribers in January. 1.8. Now we're heading into September and I'm close to hitting 200,000. And I could not have done it without all of you and your support. You guys mean the world to me. I love you so much and I'm just so excited about this new journey that I'm going on with you guys. It's exciting. So thank you so much for your support and for wanting to hear what I have to say. I don't know why, but you guys like it, so here I am. I think you'll only hear from my hair, let's be real, but I'll take it. Until next time, peace.